We have one viewer who wanted to chime in and let you know this. I live in a fairly rural purple red county in Washington. Seeing and hearing about the work you do gives me hope.
Oh, thank
That's
you, Caitlin.
lovely. Yeah, really
Yes.
very sweet. And this is just a reminder that anyone who's interested in supporting Kristiana's campaign, there's the link right there somewhere, wherever my finger is. You can go there to support her campaign. I did have a question for you that I don't know I ever hear candidates for any higher office answer, but I'm kind of curious what your media diet is like, because you are very well versed in a lot of these different types of issues that are so important. But I'm wondering, where do you get your information from typically, besides, of course, me, which is really the only source you need?
Oh, yeah, obviously. Honestly, no, but I mean, I know that was snarky, but actually you do good journalism work.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
thank
what
you.
else do you read? What else do you, what? And I'm also curious, like, hey, let's say you do make it into the legislature. There's a lot of stuff you got to vote on that you can't possibly know a lot about because they cover everything. How are you going to inform yourself when it comes to that too?
Yeah, okay. Lots of really good stuff to that. So, and I love actually asking that. So, I'm a really big fan of supporting local journalism. So, we have actually a really good local paper out where we are. I mean, local journalism is dying. I mean, it feels like it's on life support, and that's absolutely terrifying to me because what fills the void in a lot of those cases is then misinformation and weird Facebook rants and all of the all of the things that we don't want to have happen, especially when we know that a lot of really good credible sources are behind a paywall, and sometimes the headlines can be misleading or clickbaity, and that just actually adds to the fuel. So I personally make sure to subscribe to my local paper, but then also, there's the Seattle Times, but we also have some really good local publications that are more independent that I follow, because I do really appreciate that there are people taking the time to really delve into issues that often don't fit into like the 2-minute soundbite clip on the local news, where they might just pan out and show the quick story of homelessness or people experiencing homelessness kind of for a sensational bit. And then we have papers that are really speaking to the statistics and the personal stories, both that coalesce into issues that relate to, say, drug abuse issues or to fentanyl, and especially to people experiencing homelessness, and how do people become unhoused, and what are the solutions, what are organizations doing the work. So I listen to a lot of local news, and fortunately we do have, even though local news is overall hurting, we at least still have a lot of that locally. So local NPR stations as well. Goodness, I do subscribe to some national papers, but also I'm kind of funny in this way. But one of my majors is actually in Scandinavian area studies, so I know some Norwegian. So I kind of I like to follow Norwegian papers as part of my diet of news. Also, and funny also that Norway really, at least last I heard, funds papers. Like, hint, hint, maybe we should be doing that locally as well, where our governments are just saying, we're not telling you what to publish, but we want to keep you afloat. I don't know. Rough draft thinking on that. But also, this is a really funny one that I think people get a kick out of. But in terms of TV news, my really, really basic cable includes the English language version of Japanese news, NHK. So it's actually a really interesting piece that has some really good documentaries, and an interesting diet where it goes into international issues. You can follow issues related to, say, the Middle East, and then you're just like, here's Japan's perspective on it, or here's the Japanese media's perspective on it. And then it'll go into things like, North Korea launched a missile and everyone's really scared, and then say, but now let's watch a video about the birds of Hokkaido. And it's just a really great dystopian thing that I just enjoy having on as well. So I could go on about news, but I do follow quite a bit in addition to yours.
That's fantastic. No, I love that. I mean, this is the thing that I appreciate, the fact that you're getting so much information from quality sources, ranging from local to everything else. But also, that's an important way to stay involved. And I share your frustration for the death of local journalism. And I hope there's a way at the state level or national level to fix that sometime in the near future. One person asks this question: where can I find your equal in the South?
You.
That's it. I mean, yeah. I mean, that is it.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't want to take from your words here, but like there are so many people running in deep red states in the South and the Bible Belt who are fantastic, awesome, progressive people at the local level. And that's where that's where it impacts your life a lot more than it would at the state or national level too. So like these people like Kristiana, they're everywhere. But sometimes as voters, you got to seek them out, or like she's saying, be that person and run and give other people that hope.
I mean, I know that was a silly answer, but the longer answer is, again, I think about my first run where I was with somebody who was engaged politically. Like I would volunteer. I got really involved in, I was a weird kid. Okay. Like I still am, but like I got involved and thought this stuff was really interesting when I was younger. I shelved it for a while. But I do think about the fact that I always thought maybe someday I might run for office. And then finally, it's just I came to this moment in 2019 where I saw the escalation of hate crimes and hate speech in my community. And I was like, I was an 8th grade teacher and we were teaching a Holocaust unit. And I went to the school board, after I saw really hateful graffiti and other things going on and saying, you're telling me to teach a Holocaust unit where I tell students, what would you like? Why, like, tell 8th graders, like, there's a reason why we talk about the Holocaust, even though you're in 8th grade. Why would we talk about something that happened 70, 80 years ago in another country? Because it's still relevant now. So I went to the school board and said, if you're telling me to teach Never Again is Now, what are we doing locally to stop it? And that's what really sent me on that trajectory of realizing that sometimes it's just, you got to step up. And I think to answer the question of, how you get your news, you find it also through other people. Like my policy work is also informed by the people I meet along the way, which was also part of how I ended up running for this seat. Is it was through our collective efforts to put more impetus on our school boards and on our city councils to say, we want to have a community that rejects this kind of behavior. And here's what we're going to policy-wise promote instead to make it more welcoming. So to really answer that as well about defining the equal, I ended up challenging, unbeknownst to me. So here I am just wanting to run to make a more inclusive community. A week after I filed, because I made the snap decision, okay, you know what? It's filing week, it's May, I'm just going to do this. A week or so after, one of my friends said, have you seen who your opponent is? And I was like, no, because like I'm a former teacher. I'm like, I thought you would keep a pretty good profile, right? And I see that they are promoting a white Christian nationalist hate group. And then I learned that they're helping lead it, that they're like on that leadership board. And it shocked me because I was like, well, now I just have to win this. And at the very least, like, I'm glad I stood up and I'm, challenging this person. So that's where I really say it's so important that if you don't see someone else doing it, to make sure you are, and to really further that conversation and interrupt harmful ones. To my point earlier, I'm realizing because of this trajectory, my city has interrupted a lot of really harmful behavior because this group that I was challenging, or the leader of this group that I was challenging, their whole point was building the bench. Like they wanted to create a local platform where they could run for higher office. They actually got so notorious, kind of speaking to the Washington State part, that the Washington Post actually picked up on them and actually gave our city a dishonorable mention for having I had to serve with 2 of these people on the board for a while. So that's why I really say that, when it sounds really cheesy to say to be the change, but honestly, I was the burned out teacher who just was really mad and wanted things to be better. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is. And also what I tell candidates is like, I'm really passionate about you telling your story, because whatever brought you to wanting to do this, I mean, unless you're like a far right white Christian nationalist, is valid. Like, and that needs to be part of the conversation.
One viewer, Adam, chimes in, the best person to run for office to share your values is you.
Thanks, Adam.
Absolutely right. Kristiana, in our final moments here, what would be the best way for people who appreciate everything you're saying, whether or not they live in Washington or your legislative district? How can they support you? How can they help you? What is it that you need in the months going forward?
Well, if you'll see the nice little bit.ly down below, really, money is a huge thing, especially if you're living out of state and you're just like, wow, we need more people like her in office. It's like, awesome. And I do say that, like, really, as much as I'd like to say that campaigns don't require money, they do. And the
Can
reason
you
why,
can you tell us
yeah,
what
yeah,
that money goes toward in
yeah,
a legislative district
yeah,
race?
yeah, absolutely. So for one thing, I'm really big on like paying people. Like when I told people, people were first approaching me to run, and they said, "We want you to be, running for this seat. We really want you in office." And I said, "I need a team," and it's partly because I have so many amazing people in my life and so many advocates and so many volunteers, and I know that in order to really run a successful campaign, you can't expect, people, even the most passionate volunteer, to do everything for you. Like that's just unfair and unrealistic. So, it is paying people. I'm really big on, you're giving your time and your energy to do this, and we can't do it alone. Like no person can do it alone. Also, like I love doorbelling, as I mentioned. But also people do respond well to having literature that explains who you are, especially when you don't get to meet them at the door, and or it's the 11-year-old opening the door who's leaving something, whatever the case is. That stuff is important. And of course, people need to be paid to create literature for you, and especially because I support unions, and gotta keep the union folks afloat, all of that. So that's part of it, and it's just making sure that there are constant reminders that I am a choice on the ballot. So, people say, "Oh, it's too much money in politics," and it's like, but at the local level, it's really boiling down to the essentials of what it takes to just make sure you have a viable campaign. And also, I will just put out that in my race, I'm definitely the least financially endowed of the folks running. I can't, quote unquote, buy my race. I mean, if I had any extra money, it goes to my dog's vet bills, right? So I mean, to that end, that's also why it matters. I also just really value the idea that community asked me to run, and having this continuously be community fueled, really, it also just means a lot to me in terms of just seeing that people believe in this. I mean, that's what keeps me motivating too. Not just the anger then, but also the, oh my gosh, you believe in me. This is so
Right.
cool. And thank you for being one of those supporters, by the way.
Absolutely. And I think not to dissuade anyone from donating to Senate races, the presidential campaign or anything, but if you want more bang for your buck, supporting a local race or a state district race goes a much longer way. And yeah, it's something I've definitely thought about and done more locally too, because, giving whatever I can to a local race just it means it goes further. It goes a lot more. They're not buying TV ads necessarily.
Right.
They are buying like literature and ways to get their message out to a lot of people.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
do you have any final words for everyone before we wrap this up?
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, again, thank you for this opportunity, this conversation. I think I'll also just add that my bit.ly, the KDL for LD5, is also all of my social media handles. So please feel free to follow there and keep up with all of the latest hot takes on really hyper local issues and pictures of my dog and everything like that. But yeah, I'm Kristiana de Leon. I'm really honored to have this opportunity to serve already in my local community. And that kind of work has been both inspiring me and informing me of what is going well and what really needs to be done better in Washington state. And I guess I'll just say to more national viewers is, both really pay attention locally and really make sure that you understand that, even if you think it's a safe blue area, there is still so much work to be done. So don't get complacent, don't give up, get involved.
Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I know I'm going to be keeping tabs because I want to see how this plays out. And thank you for all the work you do. I admire it so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
See you later, everybody. And again, if you enjoyed this conversation, please share this video with as many people as you can. And please consider making a donation to Kristiana's campaign as well.